So, good morning guys. My name is Felix Albingco. I am BSBA 3, major in marketing management, and my report is all about criticism and challenging areas for the IMF. So, in Tagalog, criticism is pagpuna, while the challenging is mapaghamong mga lugar para sa IMF. So, pag sinabi nating IMF, ito yung tinatawag na International Monetary Fund. The IMF supports many developing nations by helping them overcome monetary challenges and to maintain stable international financial system. Despite this clearly defined purpose, the execution of its work can be very complicated and can have wide repercussion for the recipient nations. As a result, the IMF or the International Monetary Fund has both its critics and its supporters. The challenges for organizations like the IMF, the World Bank center not only on some of their operating deficiency but also on the global political environment in which they operate. Next slide. This criticism includes the following. So, ito yung mga pagpuna. Nandito nakapalob. Number one is conditions for loans. The IMF makes loan given to countries conditional on the implementation of certain economic policy which typically include the following. So, ang IMF daw ay gumagawa sila ng loan sa mga iba't ibang bansa. And then, sabi dito is reducing government borrowing, higher taxes, and lower spending. So, binabawasan ng gobyerno ang paghiram para sa mga mataas na taxes at pinapababa ang kanilang paggastos. Ito is higher interest rates to stabilize the currency. So, pinapataas ang kanilang interest rates para may stabilize ang kanilang currency. Allowing failing firms to go bankrupt. So, inaalaw daw nila ang mga pabagsak na ng mga firms mabankrupt. So, structural adjustment. One is privatization, deregulation, and reducing of bureaucracy. So, pag sinabi nating privatization, ang ibig sabihin niyan ay ito. Privatization can mean different things including moving something from the public sector into the private sector. It is also sometimes used as a synonym for deregulation when a heavily regulated private company or industry become less regulated. And then, ang ating deregulation is the removal of regulations or restrictions especially in a particular industry. So, yan ang ibig niyang sabihin. The austere policies have worked at times but always extract political tool as the impact on average citizen usually quite harsh. Some suggest that the loan conditions are based on what is termed Washington Consensus, focusing on liberalization of trade investment and financial sector. Next slide. Number 2, exchange rate reforms. When the IMF intervened in Kenya in 1990s, they made the central bank remove controls over flows of capital. So the consensus was that this decision made it easier for corrupt politicians to transfer money out of the economy, known as the Goldman scandal. So, ang ibig sabihin po ng Goldman scandal is, the Goldman scandal was a political scandal where the Kenyan government was found to have subsidized export of gold far beyond standard arrangement during the 1990s by paying the company Goldenberg International to 35% more than their foreign currency earnings. Critics argue this is another example of how the IMF failed to understand the dynamics of the country that they were dealing with, insisting on blanket reform. Number 2, devaluations. Devaluation is In the initial stage, the IMF has been criticized for allowing inflationary devaluations. So, number 4, pre-market criticism of the IMF. Believers in pre-market argues that it's better to let capital markets operate without attempt an intervention. They argue attempt to influence exchange rate only make things worse. It is better to allow currency to reach their market level. They also assert that bailing out countries with large debts is morally hazardous. Lack of transparency and involvement. The IMF has been criticized for imposing policy with little or no consultation with affected countries. Number 6, supporting military dictatorship. The IMF has been criticized over the decades for supporting military dictatorship. So, pag sinabi nating military dictatorship, parang yung batas ni Pangulong Marcos dati, yung martial law. Hinahayaan nila na mag-overpower ang military sa mga sambayan ng katauhan. So, yan lang po ang aking report. Salamat. Ang iksi lang ng report ko.